Welcome to the Smart Entrepreneurs Show, the podcast where we share smart ideas, strategies, and lessons to help entrepreneurs build better businesses. Dropshipping has become one of the most popular ways to start an online business, but many people still feel confused about where to begin and how to make it work in 2026. So how can you start a profitable dropshipping business step by step? In today's episode, we'll walk you through a simple and practical roadmap to launch your own dropshipping store, even if you're a complete beginner. If you want to start an online business with low investment, this episode is for you. Let's get started.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my main goal for us today is to just really cut through all the noise.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to deliver a pure, practical roadmap, right? Because there's so much confusion out there.
Oh, totally. I mean, to put this in perspective for you, right out of the gate in 2026, a 19-year-old with a laptop, and a decent Wi-Fi connection, they can scale a digital storefront to $100,000 a month. Faster than a traditional brick-and-mortar business can even get their local zoning permits approved. I mean, the speed of scale is entirely unprecedented.
Crazy.
But, and this is a big but, 95% of those beginners will fail in their very first week.
Right.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly why they fail and, more importantly, map out the precise mechanics of the 5% who actually succeed. We're moving entirely past the internet hype here.
Yeah, no fluff. Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
Because if we want to get past that hype, we really had to start with the vehicle we are actually driving.
Exactly.
I mean, the traditional retail model is dead simple, right? You buy 1,000 widgets, you stack them in a warehouse somewhere, and you just try to sell them for a profit.
Yeah, the old way.
But drop shipping completely flips that. The sources define it as selling products online without ever holding the inventory. Like, you require almost zero upfront capital for physical goods. It's basically like being a digital concierge. You take the order from the customer, but someone else in the back, a silent partner in a warehouse halfway across the world, is the one actually holding the goods, boxing them up, and shipping them out.
Right, and what's fascinating here is how fundamentally this shifts the entrepreneur's mental bandwidth.
How so?
Well, if we look at the historical barrier to entry for, any physical product business, it was capital tied up in inventory risk, You had to guess what the market wanted, sink your life savings into a massive production run, and basically just pray.
Yeah, cross your fingers and hope it sells.
Exactly. But by entirely eliminating that inventory requirement, the whole business model shifts your focus. You are no longer managing pallets or logistics or global freight routing.
Yeah.
You are managing pure digital customer acquisition.
Okay, but let me challenge that premise for a second. If it's really that easy, I mean, if the massive, terrifying wall of upfront inventory capital is just completely gone, doesn't that mean the market is insanely saturated?
Oh, 100%.
Because if you don't have to worry about inventory, neither does the person who started a store 5 minutes ago.
Right, exactly. The barrier to entry is gone, which means the barrier to success is so much higher. Execution is literally the only moat you have.
Wow.
Yeah, you are playing a game of pure market efficiency, and that is exactly where the vast majority of beginners just crash and burn.
Because they don't know how to execute.
Right. They operate on personal assumption rather than market observation. They decide they want to sell, overly elaborate ceramic coffee mugs simply because they personally like them.
See, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
And honestly, where I would probably mess up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you actively stop yourself from just picking a product you personally resonate with? How do you divorce your own ego from the catalog?
It's tough, but you do it through the absolute necessity of what the source material calls smart research.
Smart research, okay.
Right, but let's break down the actual mechanics of what that means in 2026. Because smart research isn't just browsing Amazon anymore.
Right, it's way past that.
Way past. It is data scraping, you are tracking search velocity, you are looking at TikTok, and specifically tracking how many user-generated duets a specific product gets within a rolling 48-hour window.
Oh, wow. So it's hyper-specific.
Incredibly specific. You're using API integrations to monitor Google Trends for sudden hockey stick spikes in consumer interest. I mean, you aren't ever asking the market, hey, do you want to buy my cool mugs?
Right.
You are using data to ask, what are you already actively begging to buy today?
So you're essentially treating the market like a river. You aren't trying to dig a new channel. You're just using data to find the current and, stepping into it.
Precisely. It's identifying a wave that is already forming. However, finding that trending product is entirely useless if you can't actually deliver it.
Which brings us to the suppliers.
Yes, the sources emphasize that finding reliable suppliers is the true backbone of the model. If you don't have a reliable supplier, the entire low inventory model just collapses.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, you are the one capturing the customer's credit card.
Exactly.
If my digital concierge service promises this premium experience, but the silent partner in the back takes 4 weeks to ship a broken item wrapped in cheap plastic, the customer isn't going to go hunt down the supplier.
No, they don't even know the supplier exists.
Exactly. They're going to obliterate my brand. I hold 100% of the reputational risk.
You bear all the risk, which makes supplier vetting your absolute most vital operational task. You cannot just click the first link on a sourcing directory.
Right.
In 2026, vetting means ordering test products to your own house. You have to audit the unboxing experience yourself.
You have to see what they see.
Exactly. And it means checking if the supplier's inventory management API can sync seamlessly with your store in real time. Because if it doesn't, you might accidentally sell an out-of-stock item.
Which is a nightmare.
A total nightmare. It also means establishing service-level agreements, or SLAs, that guarantee 48-hour dispatch times. If a supplier can't meet those mechanical thresholds, you just move on immediately.
Okay, so that logically leads to the next hurdle. Because your supplier holds your reputational risk,
Yeah.
but they are invisible to the buyer, right?
Right.
So the only way to build trust with a highly skeptical consumer is through your storefront.
Yes, your digital storefront.
But if you don't have a physical showroom, and you don't even have the inventory in your living room to take custom photos of, how do you prove you're a legitimate operation?
Well, the sources point to setting up an online store using platforms like Shopify.
Right, and they emphasize that 0 technical skills are required. But I have to push back here.
Okay, go ahead.
Since platforms like Shopify make it so easy that literally 0 technical skills are needed, won't everyone's store look exactly the same? I mean, how on earth do you stand out?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to recognize a massive shift in consumer psychology.
Okay.
The biggest mistake a beginner makes in 2026 isn't launching a poorly designed store. It's over-designing it.
Wait, really? Over-designing is the problem.
Yes. The data clearly shows that stores with plain white backgrounds, high contrast buttons, and fewer than 3 clicks to checkout, they convert roughly 40% higher than highly customized, interactive, heavily branded pages.
Wow.
Consumers aren't looking for an avant-garde digital art experience, you know? They want 0 friction. Simple and professional signals credibility. Complex and flashy signals a scam.
I see. So the differentiation doesn't happen in the code, it happens in the copy.
Yeah.
The source material specifically highlights writing product descriptions that convert browsers into buyers.
Yes.
But what is the actual mechanic behind a description that converts? Is it just like making sure you use the right SEO keywords?
Oh, no. SEO is totally secondary here. A description that converts addresses the emotional deficit the buyer is experiencing.
An emotional deficit.
Yeah, let me give you an example. A beginner lists features, right? They'll write, this water bottle is made of 304 stainless steel and holds 30 ounces.
That is standard.
Right. But a professional lists benefits that solve a micro frustration. They'll write, never drink lukewarm water at the gym again, keeps ice frozen for 24 hours.
Yeah, I see the difference.
You are shifting the cognitive load. The customer shouldn't have to translate a feature into a benefit. Your copy must do that heavy lifting for them.
And I imagine pricing plays a massive role in that psychology too. Like, how do you mechanically set a pricing strategy? Are you just taking the supplier's costs and slapping a 20% markup on it?
Oh, that is the fastest way to bankrupt yourself. Setting a pricing strategy is a really delicate algorithmic balance.
Okay, break it down for me.
You have to account for the supplier cost, obviously, and the transaction fees. But crucially, you have to account for your customer acquisition cost.
Which is?
The money you will spend on ads to get that specific buyer to your store. But it's also about perceived value. If you use smart research to find a trending posture corrector and you price it at $9, the consumer subconsciously assumes it's flimsy garbage.
Because it's too cheap.
Exactly. But if you price it at $49 with a clean 3-click store and copy that directly addresses their chronic back pain, they perceive it as a premium medical solution. The product is physically identical. The pricing dictates the perception.
Okay, so we've structured the foundation here. We have data-backed product research, an API sync supplier, and a frictionless, perfectly priced storefront with psychological copy. We are officially open for business.
We are live.
But The store's just sitting in a digital void.
Yeah.
I mean, a perfect store with zero traffic makes $0.
Exactly. You need eyeballs.
Right. And the sources pivot heavily here to marketing, specifically targeting social media platforms like Facebook and TikTok. So what does this all mean for you as the entrepreneur? Are you essentially becoming a full-time social media marketer to make this work?
Essentially, yes. They are the absolute engines of dropshipping today.
But wait, hold on. Aren't ad costs on those platforms absolutely astronomical right now? If my margins are already carefully balanced just to cover the supplier and the fees, how does a complete beginner actually afford to run campaigns without burning their entire budget by noon?
I get it. That is the exact fear that paralyzes beginners.
Yeah.
But it really stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of how these platforms operate today.
Okay.
If you think of social media ads as a billboard, you're operating on an outdated Web 1.0 mindset.
Like just paying for impressions.
Right. You aren't paying a massive flat fee, hoping a million people drive by and one person happens to care. TikTok isn't a billboard. It is a heat-seeking missile.
A heat-seeking missile. Okay, I
Yeah.
love that, but I need the mechanics on that. How does that actually work for a beginner who only has $50 to spend?
So the algorithms on platforms like TikTok and Facebook actively analyze micro behaviors. They aren't just looking at what you like or share anymore.
What else are they looking at?
They are tracking if a user lingers on a video of a camping gadget for, say, 1.5 seconds longer than their average scroll speed. They are tracking if they rewatch the first 3 seconds. The algorithm builds a highly sophisticated behavioral profile.
That is wild.
It is. So when you spend $50 on ads, you aren't just buying clicks. You are buying data. You are feeding the algorithm a specific piece of content and letting the machine hunt down the exact subset of users who don't even consciously know they want your product yet, but whose microbehaviors indicate they are primed to buy.
So the creative, like the video or image you run is basically the filter. If you make a terrible video, the missile gets confused and targets the wrong people, and you just burn your budget.
Exactly. The source material emphasizes that marketing is the engine. And in 2026, the success of your ad entirely depends on the hook rate.
The hook rate.
Yeah, what happens in the first 3 seconds of the video? You have to trigger a pattern interruption. I mean, you are disrupting someone's entertainment feed to present a solution to a problem.
Right, they didn't go on TikTok to shop.
Exactly. So if the hook fails, the algorithm stops pushing the ad and your costs skyrocket. But if the hook succeeds, the algorithm rewards you with incredibly cheap, highly targeted traffic.
Which perfectly bridges into the most dangerous phase of this entire roadmap. Let's say you nail the hook. The heat-seeking missile works. The traffic is flowing, and the first few sales actually drop into your Shopify dashboard.
Best feeling in the world.
It feels like magic, but the sources are incredibly stark here. This is precisely where the wheels fall off for most people.
Yes, it is.
They list the common beginner mistakes to avoid, right? Choosing the wrong products, which we solve with data scraping. Poor marketing, which we solve by mastering the algorithm. But the third one is a lack of consistency.
Yes. The failure to sustain the effort once the initial dopamine hit of that first sale wears off.
It reminds me of going to the gym. A lack of consistency here is exactly like going to the gym for one wildly intense 4-hour workout, staring in the mirror the next morning, and being genuinely furious that you don't instantly have a six-pack.
That is a perfect analogy.
Building a business requires sustained effort. It isn't a weekend hack.
It really isn't. And this raises an important question about the fundamental mindset shift required for you to survive the transition from a store to a brand.
Okay, what's the shift?
Well, the amateur treats a dropshipping store like a casino slot machine. You know, pull the lever, run an ad, hope for a jackpot. If it doesn't hit, they just abandon the store.
Right.
But the professional relies on the final step outlined in our sources, scaling. Once you have a proof of concept, once you start getting sales, you transition from the testing phase into actively scaling the store to turn it into a long-term business.
But how do you mechanically scale? Because if I'm just spending more money on ads to get more sales, aren't I just running on a faster hamster wheel? Where is the leverage?
The leverage comes from building an autonomous ecosystem. When you scale horizontally, you aren't just throwing more money at the same TikTok ad.
Okay, what are you doing?
You use the pixel data from those first buyers to build lookalike audiences. You're basically telling the algorithm to go find 1 million more people who share the exact data profile of your buyers.
Oh, that's smart.
And you scale vertically by implementing backend retention. Because the most expensive thing in e-commerce is acquiring a customer for the first time. The absolute cheapest thing is selling to them a second time.
Right. because you captured their email or their phone number during that frictionless checkout.
Yeah.
You now own that connection.
Exactly.
You don't have to pay Mark Zuckerberg or the TikTok algorithm to talk to them ever again.
Exactly. You implement automated email and SMS flows. You increase their lifetime value. And simultaneously, because your order volume is increasing, you return to your silent partner, your reliable supplier, and you renegotiate your pricing tiers.
So your costs drop.
Yes. Your cost of goods goes down, your back-end revenue goes up, and suddenly those razor-thin margins expand. You stop hunting for daily sales and start managing a predictable, data-driven cash flow machine.
You essentially build a moat around your business. What started as a completely zero inventory experiment becomes a highly optimized asset fueled by first-party data.
That's exactly it.
When you lay it out like that, the roadmap is intensely clear. From utilizing data scraping to divorce your ego from product selection to demanding API-level reliability from suppliers. Then, stripping away the friction of over-designed stores, leveraging the heat-seeking missile of social algorithms, and finally having the sheer consistency to scale back-end data rather than just chasing the next viral ad.
It is entirely methodical. And as we wrap up this conversation, I want you to consider one final, rather provocative implication of everything we've discussed today.
Let's hear it.
Think deeply about how the mechanics of dropshipping are dismantling the very definition of a store. For centuries, a store was anchored by physical inventory and geography. This model proves that a store is no longer a physical building filled with boxes. It is purely an exercise in digital curation and building customer trust. You are monetizing the ability to filter the noise of the internet for a specific consumer. So if the future of retail is entirely digital curation without the burden of inventory, what other massive traditional industries, perhaps automotive or real estate, might soon rely on this exact same zero inventory mindset to survive?
If you enjoyed this episode of the Smart Entrepreneur Show, make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes, and feel free to share your thoughts or experiences in the comments.